I don't know if that was just on mute the entire time. Nope, it's not just you. Ah, I'm gonna have to start the whole thing over again. I just unmuted it. Yep, I know. I just unmuted it. I have no idea why it was like that. I literally checked all of the sounds. So now I'm probably gonna have to actually like cut this video. You know what I'm gonna do, guys? No, I'm not gonna do that. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going with it. I'm just going to keep going with it. I might actually edit this video and edit all of that dead space out now. For some reason, it was muted and it was something the computer did on me because I checked everything before I started. So, yeah. Okay, so let's start back at the beginning. Okay, first off, I don't know how much of this was muted. I just looked down and saw that my microphone was muted. So I have no idea how much was. So let me start off by showing you my kindred spirits because that's not even going to make sense now. So this is my kindred spirit sweatshirt. Okay, so any of you that are Anna Green Gables fans, you'll know what that stands for. Okay, so, and I thought it was nice that we're talking about Anna Green, or I'm wearing the kindred spirits sweatshirt while talking about this subject of friendship. And this is a friend of mine suggested that I do this. So that is why I'm doing this topic tonight. And like I was saying, I welcome all topic suggestions because I feel like a lot of these are repeats, but I constantly have new women finding my podcast and starting to listen. So that's okay if I have to have repeats. So I know I've talked about friendship a lot in the past because friendships are very near and dear to my heart. And I've been very, very blessed that I have close friends in my life. As many of you know, I've had a best friend since I was 12, and that's decade long, that's a decade long relationship. But not only do I have my best friend since I was 12, I have a very close other best friends in different countries. I always say I have my American best friend, my bestie since I was 12. Then I got my Canadian best friend. I have my Irish best friend. I have lots of friends in different countries. I would consider that my friend list is small as far as close friends, ones that I bare my heart and soul to. Obviously, I have been burned a lot being in the ministry. So I have to guard my heart as far as who I tell everything to, because obviously you're going to tell your closest friends more than you tell just an average Joe friend or one that you just have, an acquaintance with. You're going to tell more to those that you're very, very close to, that your hearts are knit close to. So, all of us women desire friends. And I also think that we need friends, especially as women. Our husbands were meant to give us logical, sane advice. And sometimes we just need girlfriends to vent to. I've been blessed with very close friends my entire life. I've never had a void of not having a friend in my life. I will say, though, that my close friends are a smaller circle. Being in the ministry, I have been hurt countless number of times, but I still need someone that I can let my hair down with and talk with about everything near and dear to my heart. And I've been very, very blessed in this area. All of my friendships have started organically because I've learned that you can't force friendships. They're just going to happen. They just have to happen. Maybe some of you out there have never had that super close friend. You've never been blessed like I have, and you wonder why. So I wanted to share some things I've done in my own life that have contributed to me having very deep, authentic friendships with women in my life. And, relationships, they're kind of something that I specialize in. I've had to learn a lot since the time that I was younger and I started in the ministry. I had to learn how to deal with people. I had to learn how to deal with emotions. I had to learn how to deal with people having a bad day and people needing advice and people going through really, really tough times in their life. I've had to learn to deal with all of those things. So I'm always trying to fine tune how I interact with people. I'm trying to read books about relationships and listen to communication experts like Jefferson Fisher. I'm always trying to just fine tune that area of my life because I think that we have to be careful with people. We have to be very careful about damaging relationships, about damaging their heart. And people are going through things sometimes that we have no idea what they're going through. And so we have to have grace with people and we have to have patience and we have to, show them the love of Christ in our own life and how we interact. And sometimes as a pastor's wife, I have to be the bigger person. I have to forgive a lot easier than other people. I have to forget things. I can't constantly be dwelling on ways that I've been hurt or things that people have said, maybe in just a bad moment. We all have bad moments, right? We all have bad days. So I have to really just get over things a lot, especially if I want to have relationships with the women in my church. And I do, I genuinely do. So, um, I would suggest, though, for anyone that is looking to make friends or even just to be a better friend or to be friendly to other people, the number one thing I would definitely say is be approachable. Learn the balance between being friendly and stalkerish. What do I say by stalkerish? Well, sometimes I think women can get so just desperate for someone who really gets them and is close to them, and that they click with someone, and then suddenly it's, oh, I need to know more about this person. I need to know where they live and know all about them, and know their deepest fear and know their deepest insecurity. It's a big red flag to me if I meet someone and they just go into just like every nitty gritty detail of everything that's painful to them or private to them, because that's something that you kind of got to build up to, right? So if someone's just like telling me all their deep, dark secrets, I'm like, whoa, 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 hold on there, Nelly. Like, well, let's slow this down a little bit, okay? Because oftentimes oversharing is just kind of a sign of being desperate for a friendship or for a connection. I get it. I get that we all want connection, and but you got to be careful with who you overshare with, because a lot of people who are not good at heart will use that against you. And unfortunately, we live in a world with screenshots, in a world where people are pitted against each other. And if you don't have established boundaries before a friendship, that person might use that against you. So I have established some rules in my own life when it comes to all friends, because there's been times in my life where there's different friends for different seasons, right? And there's an established rule that I have where I will not share screenshots of private information, or not private information even. I won't share screenshots of private conversations. I believe that when you are a friend with someone and you're texting, you're calling, you're communicating, when you're a friend with someone, that earns a certain amount of trust. And there's a certain amount of trust that comes to being friends with someone. And so even if that person turns against me in the future, I refuse to bring myself down to that level and share private conversations. That's just not how I work. And there's a lot of groups out there that will, in a heartbeat, use screenshots of private conversations. And I think it's disgusting, honestly, especially if you were friends with that person. I think it's disgusting, even if it's to validate yourself or prove that you're right in this situation. I don't agree with it. So I won't, that's an established boundary I have in my own life, that I will not use screenshots. I've seen people weaponize screenshots against others and weaponize the fact that they used to be friends. And there was that place of trust there where they trusted each other with things, and obviously we let our hair down with our friends. We talk about things with our friends, and to turn around and use that against someone that used to be your friend, I think is really disgusting. So that's just an established boundary that I've established in my life. But you have to be careful with oversharing. So don't force something. If you click with someone, that's great, see where it will go. It's kind of even the same with dating. Like, you can't force yourself to click with someone with dating, as much as you want it to happen. It has to happen organically. Sometimes you click with people and sometimes you don't, and then sometimes those that you click with, you might just be friends when you see them every so often or every few months or something. But it doesn't mean that it has to build to like this, deep, lasting, decades long friendship. So sometimes it will, sometimes it doesn't. And then just remember that online persona is different than in person. I'm constantly telling people, like, you need to visit our church. There's so much out there, the 70 member church. There's so much out there about our church. Just I don't know. And people get like this online perception when they see videos of us online or, they hear things about us. And I always tell everyone, just come visit us, meet our families, see that we don't have horns and we're nice people. And, we like each other and we get along and there's a great spirit in this place. You can just feel it when you walk in. So, online persona is always different. I've often been shocked when I meet people that I had, because you get this image, right? While you're interacting with people, even online, messaging people, talking with people, you get this image. Many of you have an image of me in your head, good or bad, and it's just not reality. So you have to visit and you have to see the way that we interact. You have to see if I'm a feminist, if I put my husband down, if I run the church. You have to see for yourself. And it's pretty laughable that people say that. So online persona is always different than in person. I would definitely I would be very careful, like establishing an online relationship with someone. It might be something, it might be a bot, with someone, because in person relationships are always going to be deeper than things that you perceive online. You can put any face forward online that you want. You can say anything trying to get people to believe you. You can try to create this persona, but the real deep friendships are going to be the ones that you meet in person, people you're around with a lot of time, people that you're talking to in a private context daily, you know? So let it develop naturally. Deep relationships take time. They take a lot of time and they take a lot of effort. And that's why I'm at the point in my life where I love meeting people and I love when people visit our church that maybe watch us online. And because, like I said, you always have like this image of what people are like. And oftentimes I've been very surprised because either the people that you think are going to be outgoing are super like introverts, they're super introverts in person. And you're like, oh, well, that kind of surprises me because online you're like all over talking to everyone. Or people that are very quiet online, they're very extroverted when you meet them in person. So it's always better to just know someone in person, meet them in person, interact with them in person, and just let relationships develop naturally. Don't divulge too much info until trust is established. And I say this coming from someone who's been burned. And when I first got on social media, probably 8, 9 years ago, I haven't even had a Facebook super long, maybe 8 years. I'm not sure. I was late to the game of Facebook. And when I first got on, I was way too trusting. And I just believed that people were who they said in messages to me. And I've learned a lot since then, a lot of hard lessons about just, yes, you have to be yourself, but you also have to be careful with the written word because maybe if you are having a bad day, you might say something that you didn't entirely mean, and then people take it the wrong way, or, whatever that is. And so, another personal boundary that I have for me in my own life is that I will not comment on like YouTube videos, even Facebook. I do it all under my name because that lends a sense of accountability to what I say. Because if you're hiding behind an an anonymous account, it's really easy to get carried away and say things that you wouldn't had your name backing that. So that's just a rule that I've made for myself. Now, Elena, I will say with me, I am an extrovert. I'm extrovert online and I'm extrovert in person. Anyone that visits will see that I'm very talkative in person. I like to talk. I like to joke. I like to laugh. I like to interact with people. That's pretty much how I am across the board. But I've been really surprised when I've seen really outgoing people online and then I meet them in person, they're super quiet. And I'm like, this doesn't fit with like the image I had in my mind. So, and that being said, be leery of anon accounts online. Remember that real life relationships are more important and they're much deeper than online. People can be anything or anyone that they want to be behind a screen. We all put our best foot forward on social media. Obviously, I'm going to share the funny things my kids do. I'm not going to share like the chaotic mess right before dinner, right? I'm not going to film that and put it online. We're all putting forth our best foot. So, develop listening skills when it comes to making friendships, establishing friendships. Learn about them. Don't just blah, 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 blah about yourself. I've met people before where I didn't get a entire word in like an hour of talking to them because it was just one story after another about things they've been through, which is all good and fine. But when you're first meeting someone, no need to dump truck every life problem that you've ever had in your entire existence onto them. At that point, it's just all about you, and poor me, poor me, poor me. So be careful about that. Listen to someone as they're talking to you. Don't just listen to respond. I feel like a lot of us people, and I've had to be very intentional about this over the last decade, because I realized that I was doing this. It was after I had read a book or something about communication. And most people, when listening to others, they're not listening as a way of getting to know them better. They're listening, just waiting to respond, or they're listening, trying to figure out what to respond as they're listening. So if you really want to know about someone, it's best to develop listening skills. And listening does take skills, especially for me, because I'm more of a visual person. So when it comes to intaking knowledge, I can remember pretty much everything that I've read, that I've seen written down. But when I've heard something, that's why oftentimes if I'm watching a YouTube video or listening, I never really watch a YouTube video. It's always listening. I'm always multitasking, right, as I'm doing it. So I'll have a YouTube video playing in the background and I'll hear something and I'm like, wait, did I hear that right? And so I'll go back and look at the transcript. For me, I prefer, if I'm trying to like find something in a video or seeing what the video is about, I read the transcript first, and then I'm able to see exactly what was said. And for me, it sticks better in my head. So for me, visual is way better than auditory. So for me I have to really focus on what someone's saying. And I tend to forget what I hear more than what I read. And we're all built differently. For you, you might be great at listening because auditory is your listening method. You love listening to audiobooks, you love listening to the Bible. For me, my mind wanders, but when I'm reading something, I really get drawn in and I remember it. So, for me, I have had to develop listening skills. I listen first and foremost so that I can learn more about them. Secondly, I'm listening because I care. I care about them and I want to know where they're coming from. I want to know why they're telling me this. I want to know, what they're thinking. Realize that you can be a blessing to someone else. Don't just look for blessings for yourself. And it's a blessing to have friends. It's a blessing to be a friend. But I think oftentimes us ladies, we get stuck in the cycle of what can I get out of it? And that's just human nature. They talk about being a narcissist. Well, I think all of us have the potential to be a narcissist because we're very selfish. Deep down, we're very selfish. It takes effort to care for others. It takes effort to look at the heart of the matter. It takes effort to really get to know someone. So just remember that you can be a blessing to someone. You just don't try to have a friendship just to see what you can get out of it. I think one of the biggest things to having friends and being a friend is don't be easily offendable. True friends can tell the truth to each other, and true friendship is based on the foundation of truth. Truth is very, very important to me. Oh my goodness, Marta, I am the same thing with board games. The auditory thing, like, I don't understand what you're saying. Give me the board game instructions and let me read them. If I can read them, then I can figure it out, right? So just give me the instructions and let me read them, and then we can go on with it. When someone tries to explain board games to me, I am so lost. It's not even funny. So I'm right there with you. But yeah, truth is super important to me. So I want my friends to be honest with me, and I want to be able to be honest with my friends. I don't like walking along around on eggshells, you know, with anyone. I don't like passive aggressiveness. There's been oftentimes in my marriage where my husband would be like, boy, steak sure would taste good tonight. And I'll just look at him and say, can you please just ask me to make you steak? I don't like passive aggressiveness. I was kind of raised in an environment where the go to was passive aggressiveness. And I just would have rather been told, like straight out, this is what I want you to do. This is what I don't want you to do. Just tell me. I can handle it. I can handle the truth. And so for me, my closest friends are those that I can be honest with and I can tell the truth with. And if you can't tell the truth to someone, then you're not really that close of friends. If you're scared of offending them, we kind of get into this mentality, all of us do it as human beings, where everything is black and white. Okay. So everything's black and white in our minds. So if this person is on this side of the issue, then they think that everyone also on that side of the issue needs to accept everything that comes with that, where that's not always the case. You can be on the right side of an issue and then also call out bad behavior or call out something you don't like, right? So if you have to constantly worry about someone turning against you or someone, not being able to express when they're disappointed with something you did or they don't agree with something you did, then that's not true friendship. That's not true friendship at all. So friendship should be built on truth. Don't try to control your friends, because if there's a true friendship, there's not control. There's no need to control. There's no need to control actions. There's no need to control reactions to things. There's no need to control the way that they feel or the way that they act, or, let them be them. It's okay to have differences. And I have learned sometimes when I have a friend that's venting to me, sometimes they just need to vent. I don't need to fix anything, And I've also realized in friendships that sometimes, even though I know and I can sense something is wrong, me and my friends operate different ways. So for me, when something is wrong, I'm going to let you know. I'm going to let you know. With my close friends, I'll be like, I need to send a voice memo. And then I'll just rant and I'll be like, this is what's bothering me. I'm overwhelmed. Like, this is going on in my life, and I'll just rant. Whereas Erica, one of my best friends, when she's going through something very deep or very painful, it takes a while for her to tell me, because she just needs to keep it inside for a while. She needs time to process it. She needs time to figure it out herself. And then when she's ready, she'll tell me. So oftentimes she'll be like, yeah, I'm having a rough day. We're going through something. I'm like, well, do you want to talk about it? No. Okay. If you don't want to talk about it, I'm going to leave you alone. So, but I'm here when you want to talk, because sometimes we do need time to process it. And we're upset, but we just can't tell someone at that time. Right. So with her, I know when she's good and ready, she'll tell me, but I'm not going to try to drag it out of her. So with my friends, I don't try to control when they tell me things. If they tell me things, it's all on their timeline. And when they want to tell me, they'll tell me, and if people say no about something, it means no. And I learned that a long time ago. I'm not going to push it. If someone tells me no, okay, I'm fine with that. You don't have to tell me. I'm not going to try to drag it out of you. I'm just going to, let it be. And I don't try to control my friends. I don't try to control what they do. The Baptist world, they do this politics thing, and it's super annoying to my husband and I. And we're both very independent when it comes to how we act, how we live. We don't, and Baptists have tried playing these mind games and things where they want, like, we're held responsible for anything that someone that like sides with us on an issue. We're now held responsible for anything they do. And it's ridiculous, because we're all independent, and for us, we don't try to control our friends. We don't tell them, I don't know, whatever it is, we don't try to tell them what their reaction should be or how they should feel, or whatever. So but the Baptists, they like to try to control who your friends are. They like to try to control who you associate with. It's very political, very political. And oftentimes just a Facebook like is enough to get you, thrown out of the club or whatever. So it's not like that anymore with my husband. And I think pretty much people know that we're our own people and we kind of do our own thing. But it used to be. It definitely used to be. Be a good communicator when it comes to establishing friendships. It takes time. So check in with those that you're close to, check in with your friends. Be gentle in your responses to your friends, but don't shy away from the truth. One thing that I've learned over the past decade or so is you can speak truth in kindness. You don't have to come across as harsh. You don't have to be demeaning. You don't have to put people down. You can still stand on what you believe is truth, but you can do it in a kind way. And then learn to speak truth in love. Now, this next point, don't try to control your friends. This is a big thing for me. So obviously, you're going to see one thing that I look for, and we all look for different things in our friendships. Okay. So this is not like a one size fits all. This is just kind of things that are important to me in my life when it comes to my friends. And I think it's important to them too. That's probably why we're close. But one of the big things for me is obviously truth. I like honesty. I like friendship, leveled on truth and being able to tell each other the truth and not having to skirt around issues and not having to have things be awkward or walk on eggshells. That's really important to me. But then also just this idea of controlling people. And this is really good even when it comes with your spouse. Don't try to control your friends or your spouse. No one likes being friends with a controlling person. It sucks joy out of relationships. It sucks freedom out of relationships. It sucks truth out of relationships when someone is controlling. Relationships don't work well when you try to micromanage them. They don't work well when you try to control other people, try to micromanage other people. So what if your friend didn't react the way you wanted? Oh, well, maybe they're distracted. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe there's something going on in their life. I know we all like our friends to be excited when we're excited and be sad when we're sad and, be focused on the exact same thing that we're focused on. But you have to put yourself in their shoes too. Everyone has different life experiences and everyone is going through something different in life than we are. It's going to be a lot different for the person who has one kid when they're friends with someone who has 6 or 7 or 8, when there's a person who gets to be a stay-at-home mom who's friends with someone who has an outside job. That's going to look different too, because that person is going to have a lot more on their plate as far as like juggling responsibilities, juggling their job. They're at work without their phone. So things are always going to look different. And so we can't just have these expectations on our friends and our minds that they're supposed to act this way or do this or react this way, and then be disappointed when that doesn't happen. Embrace your differences and try to see things from their point of view. Like I said, it's impossible to talk about really raising kids with someone that's never had a kid. And that's not a put down on the person that's never had a kid. It's just a fact. They're not going to know what it's like to be woke up every 10 minutes from puking in the middle of the night, the level of exhaustion that you're working on, so when you're working on that level of exhaustion, you have to be very mindful of things that you say or how you come across. And there's no way to really explain it to someone that's never been through that. It's hard to talk about marriage and everything that it entails to someone who's never been married. They can think they have an idea of what it's like, but they'll never know until they've been married. So it's not a put down. It's just a fact of life that things are going to be different, with each different situation. Things are going to be different in your home than they are in my home. And we can make broad, generalized statements, but you never really know until you've been through that situation. A widow has never, you can't understand what a widow is going through unless you've been a widow. You can't understand what someone's going through who has lost a child unless you've lost a child. So there's just no comparing it. And we're all in different seasons. We're all in different stages of our life. We're all in different, just different seasons. Don't expect them to do everything like you would. And what I'm talking about that is like you we all have our different ways of loving people. For me, time is a big thing. So if I am spending time talking on the phone with you, if we're spending time doing an activity, that's really kind of shows how I care about you, because time is so limited in my life, because I'm every day is full of something, and I have a lot of kids and I have a husband, and their needs come first. So what time I have left after that, I'm very careful with, I'm very choosy with. So time is important with me. Um, just being there for a text or, a phone call or anything, that's kind of how I show people I care. But you might have a different way. Maybe you like to give gifts, and that's the way that you show your love. Well, if you like to give gifts, a lot of times we have it in our head, well, if they loved me, they would give me a gift, because I love giving gifts and that's how I show my love. But that's not necessarily how everyone shows their love. So you kind of have to pinpoint how different people show their love and be like, oh, that's why take time to do this with me. That's why you give me a gift. That's why you talk with me. Like, that's the way you show your love, right? And we all show it differently, including our husbands, including our spouses. I would say I really don't know what mine is. It's not really acts of service, because he's not really big about like the house has to be clean, and the house usually is clean, and the dinner is made and all that stuff. That's usually done. Um, but I almost think he feels loved when I think when I just give him my undivided attention when he's home, right? So that is, I know for him, that's one way that I can show him my love. For me, I would say quality time is huge. It was definitely that when we were younger, but I also like words of affirmation. And when he's sweet to me and kind to me, and, I think as women, we just blossom under that. So just kind of find out what they do, why they're doing what they do. So, you know, is maybe his is acts of service. So he in turn turns around and does an act of service for you, like filling your water bottle. And to him, that's showing him that he loves you, because that's what makes him feel loved. So we all kind of have different ways. And it's good to talk about that too. And then even with your friends, there's different ways. Erica's is definitely gift giving, definitely 100%. And she gives the best gifts. And so when she gives me a good gift, I know that's her way of saying, I love you. And for me, it's seeing her, spending time with her, talking on the phone with her, sending her voice messages, like time. That's mine, which is why she's the one who gives good gifts. I'm the one who goes and visits her. And that's kind of our way of showing each other we love each other. She doesn't come here very often, but to me, it's super important. That's why I go there. And that's the way that I kind of show her I love her. So, we all have different ways. You love your friend in your way, and you let them love you in their way. And everyone has different ways. And it's the same with spouses too. And then forgive and forget. Sometimes think hurtful things are going to get said, and it's not a matter of they're being vindictive or mean. It happened. And, you just have to learn to forgive and forget. Water under the bridge, that type of thing. And we're all going to have opportunities in our life to forgive. And it's definitely better to be humble and just admit fault and then ask for forgiveness, rather than dig your feet in. The ones that don't have friends that end up living their life alone are the ones who never did anything wrong, are the ones who can't humble themselves and just ask for forgiveness over a hurt, because we're all going to hurt each other at one time in our life. Hurts are going to come, but it's up to us to just kind of realize my relationship with this person is more important than this slight. And yeah, my ego was hurt. I was offended, but I'm going to be the bigger person. And I'm going to move on, because the relationship matters to me more. Obviously, if it continues to happen, it might be something that you need to talk about, or you need to air out, or whatever. But I know for me, I've just had to, even with spouses, we have to just kind of, forgive and forget. And we know that with our spouse, it's till death do us part. So we have to work on it. We have to get over things. We have to move past things. And I would rather just experience a peaceful marriage and let go of the hurt than be vindictive and mean and bitter and, just dwell on things like that all the time. So be a trustworthy person when it comes to friendship. Don't divulge secrets. Don't talk about things that aren't yours to talk about. Don't tell stories that aren't yours to tell. Don't share private conversations with others. Don't share screenshots of private conversations, even if you were friends in the past and you no longer are friends. Being a friend takes trust from both parties. If your friendship ends, don't turn on that person publicly. There have been people that I was friends with in different seasons of my life. And those friendships, for whatever reason, did come to an end, and we went down different paths, or we took different ways. One thing that I've determined to do is I would not trash them publicly. I would not turn on them publicly. I would not share private conversations, even if it benefited me. And it's just being a person of character and being a person of ethic, being an ethical person. There are people of very low character who would share every private conversation if it benefited them. And I have determined that I would not be that person of low character and do that. I would not share private conversations, screenshots, whatever. Be ethical in your friendships, be trustworthy, be someone that people can get close to without feeling like you're going to turn on them and attack them and, just go on Facebook rants and, oh man, there's just so many dumpster fires of like divorces that are happening, and people are just on there. Like, when you are a spouse with someone, that is one of the most trusted unions. Like, you need trust when it comes to being a spouse, right? And I am just completely blown away by the stuff that people publicize on Facebook. I'm like, whoa, like this is not good. So you have to be very careful about airing dirty laundry, especially for a marriage where you're not going to be able to take those words back, and a screenshot can happen in 1 second as soon as you post it, someone's screenshotted it. And if you want to work through your issues, which you should with marriage especially, then you don't ever want to do something public in that way. So be very ethical in your friendships. Don't ever weaponize information you have or information you had. Don't become bitter. Just respect that they don't want to be your friend anymore and move on. It's just move on. You know what? Cut your losses and move on. Unfortunately, I do think that God puts different friends in your life for different seasons. One of my best friends that died, Kelly. She was in my life. I needed her at that time in my life because and I still feel the loss of her profoundly. I still cry over it. I'm not going to talk about it because I probably start crying. I don't want to do that on camera. I feel her loss every day. I do. But at the time of my life, I really believe that God made us become close because we needed each other. We both became pastors' wives within a few months of each other. And it was not even just our husbands took over a church, it was planting a church. Anyone that's ever planted a church knows how hard it is and how nitty gritty it is. And once again, you'll never know how hard it is or difficult it is until you do it, until you're put into that situation. And so we got it. We were both thrown into the world of homeschooling together at the same time. And so literally we would be texting each other like, please point me to the nearest bridge because I'm going to go jump off. Talk me off the ledge because I'm going to go jump off if you don't talk me off the ledge. And so we would talk each other off the ledge. I would talk her off the ledge. And oftentimes I would be having a good day when she would be having a bad day. And that worked to our advantage because I'd be like, don't find a bridge to jump off. Obviously we were joking. We would not do that to our kids, but sometimes you need to vent. And so I would be like, don't find a bridge to jump off of. It's okay. You'll get through this. And then the next day when she would be having a good day and I'd be having a terrible day, usually having to do with math of some sort, explaining math to children. Math was our nemesis. She would talk me down. She would talk me off the ledge. So, there were those times where we both really, really needed each other. And then after she died, I became pretty close friends with another person in my life who was the exact opposite of Kelly. And she was what I needed during that transition time where, I didn't have that friendship with Kelly anymore. And I still miss that. And I still yearn for that. I can't wait till I see her in heaven again. But then a year or two ago, this friendship kind of changed and we kind of had to go down different paths and we're no longer close like we were. But that's not something now that I'm just going to, say, oh, well, who cares? I do care. It was important to me at the time. And I treasure the fact that we were friends. And I'm not going to scoff at that or say it didn't mean something or it wasn't hurtful when it ended, because it did hurt when it ended. And I take my friendships very seriously. And, I do mourn the fact when relationships come to an end when there's no closure, and I don't like that, because I think everyone likes closure in their life. And so that really bothers me. But, sometimes it's just a fact of life that you go down different paths and you choose different ways of life, and you just not are not compatible anymore. But just, be thankful for the times where God had that friendship in your life for a reason. So don't poison the well with others. Allow others to be that person's friend, but even if you go different ways, without saying anything about them. It's a very insecure thing where you have to poison the well when it comes to other people. And when it makes you mad that someone else is the friend of this person that you used to be friends with, but you no longer are. It shows a sign of insecurity when you have to poison the well. So you don't need to tell of every nitty gritty detail about your friendship. You don't need to tell of every area where they failed, because you know what? You failed too. We've all failed in different areas. We all have faults. And it just it's not a good look when you're poisoning the well when it comes to other people. And so then lastly, if you want to be friends, if you want to develop friendships with people, be the friend that you want to others. Take the time, put the time in the friendship, listen when they're talking to you. And don't just listen in order to respond, really listen, get to know them, get to know their likes, get to know their dislikes, make it, I know, especially for our spouse, make it a life's mission to really know your spouse and know them well. Be there for them. Sometimes one of the best things that you can do as a friend is pray for them. And I've definitely felt the prayers of my friends through many different situations in my life, such as childbirth, difficult things. If I just put it out there, listen, I really covet your prayers right now. I really need them. I've felt them, like my soul can feel them. And we underestimate the power of prayer, which I say often on the show. But love your friends, forgive your friends, show your friends kindness, even if they hurt you. Oftentimes, and this goes along with being approachable, but we take things the wrong way. And why are we so insecure about things? Like, why are we taking that the wrong way? Maybe someone makes a flippant comment and we just can't stop thinking about it, right? Like, we're just constantly dwelling. Oh my goodness, what did they mean by that comment? Why did they say that comment? What do they really think about me? When that person said it and then forgot they said it. So we tend to build things up in our minds, but we also need to take our thoughts into captivity. We need to realize that they might have just been making a comment in passing. They didn't mean it that way. We took it the wrong way. That's why even communicating via text is oftentimes not the greatest, because you can't communicate inflections in your voice. Like, I can't communicate a smile. I can't, maybe you're saying, oh, you silly goose. And you said it like that, but they take it as, you are such a stupid, silly goose. Like, they take it like you had contempt on your face, right? When you were just like, you're such a silly goose. You just said it to be funny. And so we have to be careful with texting. Emojis are good, yes. But oftentimes when I'm talking or venting to my friends, I would rather just send a voice message, because then at least they can hear my voice. They can hear the inflection in my voice. They can hear, different personality stuff coming out in my voice. So you have to be really careful with the written word. Just be kind. And then truthfulness, be true, be honest to them, but then don't get bent out of shape when they're honest with you. And then two, with honesty, they might just have perceived something wrong. So I'm not saying that every time someone's honest with you, that's even true or it's even reality, but that's what they're feeling. So it's always good to kind of get the truth out there. But then as the friend, you can be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it that way. Like, that came across a lot more harsh than I meant. That's not my intention. That's not what I meant. This is what I meant. And then you can kind of clear the air that way. And also, as a friend, take it with a grain of salt, because maybe there's something going on that you couldn't really even disclose to your friend. There's something, a battle you and your husband are going through that can't be public, or there's internal conflict going on, or something. And so take it with a grain of salt. And then I always, when people bring things up with me, for faults or some way that I have hurt someone, I look at it and I say, is there any truth to this? First of all, is this a person whose opinion I respect, or doesn't matter? And then if it is, then I'll look at it and I'll be like, is there any truth to this? There is a little bit of truth. I really came across a lot more strongly than I meant to, and I shouldn't have done that. So yeah, okay, there's an element of truth to this. Okay, well then, I can say, I'm sorry, I want to work on this or whatever. But if there's not an element of truth to it, then you're just going to have to, that's an area where forgiveness comes in. And well, it's not true. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't being dramatic, whatever. So I'm just going to choose to move on. I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm going to tell them, I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention, but, I did need to say this, or, whatever. And then I'm just going to move on. Because especially as a pastor's wife, you can't be racking up a list of offenses against your church members. How would you feel if they were doing it to you? And honestly, a lot of church members do against their pastor and his wife. And just cut them some slack. Please, all my church members, cut me some slack. I am a mom just like you are. I'm a wife just like you are. I have a lot on my plate just like you do. And I'm not perfect. And don't put me on a pedestal. I'm going to have bad days. We all have very busy, full lives. I'm going to have bad days. I'm going to have hormones I'm working against. And I'm not Superwoman that is going to respond exactly 100% right to every situation. I'm not going to react 100% correctly to every situation. But I really strive to give people grace. And I really hope that everyone else does it with me. And, oftentimes they don't, because I am held to a high standard, I believe, in some people's minds. I'm not extended grace, but I am not in charge or responsible for how people think about me, act towards me, treat me. The only thing I'm responsible for is my reaction and the way I treat others. That's all I'm responsible for. And so I will take responsibility for my actions, but I can't always control what other people do to me. And so because of that, I try to extend grace. I try to show them grace, and then, forgive and move on. And then just appreciate your friends, appreciate the fact that you have friendships. Tell them often, I'm so glad you're my friend. I'm so thankful for you. We like being told nice things. So we should in turn tell others that we appreciate them. Which I do with my friends. So I do tell them, because words are important to me. I understand the power in a word. And so I try to tell people I'm thankful for them, and it means a lot when someone is told that. So anyways, I think one of the biggest things to making new friends is just being approachable, being friendly, not making everything about you, and we've all been through things. I saw this thing where it was this reel I shared, and it was funny because it was like, firstborn daughters, and I don't understand why people don't understand why me as the eldest daughter, like, never goes through anything. And then it shows a picture of them like drinking coffee and smiling. And, firstborn daughters were kind of expected to hold it together. We had a really high expectation put on us when we were born. I am not only the firstborn daughter, I am the eldest daughter. I am the eldest in a family. So I was the glue that held the family together. When my dad died, especially at age 17, I was the glue. And my mom was a wreck for that first year or two after he died. She was a hot mess. And even though I was only 17, I had to grow up fast. I had to go very fast. And I didn't get the average 17, 18, 19-year-old experience that a lot do, the whole carefree thing. Just becoming into adulthood. I had to become adult pretty much the day my dad died. Even when he was sick, my mom had to spend a lot of time with him because he had ALS. And so he was in a wheelchair the last month or so of his life. And also on oxygen because he started struggling to breathe. So my mom was fully invested in caring for him near the end of his life. And I was the oldest, and the youngest was 5, Bethany. And so I made sure the house was running still. I made sure, it got cleaned and the meals were done and laundry was done. And um, I was the glue. And so after he died, that first year and a half, I kind of had to mother my mom. And I helped her make a lot of decisions when it even came to money stuff and, buying the house. And, I was right there as the oldest daughter. I was right there with her through all of that. And so I had to grow up very, very quickly. And I learned that I had to be okay because my mom needed me. And because of that, and also being a pastor's wife, I have to be okay when other people aren't. I have to be. And I'm kind of sharing a little bit of my heart with you right now, but there's been times in my life where I've gone through some really, really deep things and I'm not able to show it to my church or show it to even my friends because I had to be okay. And that's kind of how I've had to live my life. And so, I've learned to internalize things a lot more, I think, than most people because of that. But that's not to say that I have a perfect life or I never go through anything. I think people think that I try to put this persona out there like I have this perfect life. And I've experienced deep loss in my life, starting from the time I was 17. And I've lost babies, in my marriage. I've lost pregnancies. I've lost best friends. I've lost a dad. And so I've had a lot of deep losses, but I'm not going to make that who I am. I'm not going to stay in the valley of grieving forever. I've got to live life for my kids and my husband, and I've got to go on with my life. And so it's not that eldest daughters or those with type A personalities they have this perfect life and they don't ever go through anything. No, but we've realized that we have to kind of put aside things that we're going through because other people need us too. My husband needs me, my kids need me, my church needs me. And so when you have a mindset focused on others, you learn to not wear your feelings on a sleeve. You learn to, even if you're going through hard times, that when you show up at church, you put that aside and you smile and you listen to other people and you listen to their needs and what they're going through. And oftentimes when we do that, our hurts and the things we're going through kind of fade. Because when you focus on others, that selfishness kind of goes away and it kind of fades. And yes, there are times when you need to be focused on too, and people need to care what you're going through, obviously. But it's not every single week. It's not every single day. Your life shouldn't just be one perpetual, I don't know, catastrophic event after another. You got to learn to just be at peace with who you are and your circumstances, your situations, and, just not wear your feelings on your sleeve, I guess. So yeah, hopefully that helps. I hope all of you have deep friendships because they are really important in life. And I am very thankful for the friends in my life. I'm very thankful for the church that we have. I'm very thankful for my international besties. I'm thankful for the one that I've been best friends with since I was 12. And I know that's rare and I don't take that for granted. So anyways, I hope that this has been a help and, go make a friend, go be a friend and see what comes out of it. Go home and love God, love your husbands and love your kids and love them well. And I hope to see you next week.